The bright blue starship of the Galactic Federation drifted slowly through the darkness of space. Captain Mark Reynolds stood at the command deck, his eyes fixed on the massive holographic display that filled the front wall. The ship's sensors had picked up something unusual, a large cluster of metal signatures floating in the void. "Captain, you might want to see this," called out Tom, the ship's lead scanner operator. His fingers danced across the glowing control panel as he enhanced the image. "We're picking up what appears to be, well, sir, it looks like a fleet." Reynolds walked over to Tom's station, his boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. The scanner showed hundreds, maybe thousands of ships, all floating in perfect formation despite their apparent age. "How old are these readings?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir," Tom replied, adjusting his uniform collar. "Initial scans suggest these ships are at least 50,000 years old, maybe older." The bridge crew fell silent. Reynolds stroked his chin, studying the readings. "Take us closer," he ordered, "but maintain safe distance protocols." As their ship approached, the ancient fleet became visible through the main viewport. The ships were massive. Capital ships larger than anything the Federation currently possessed. Their dark hulls were covered in what looked like primitive armor plating, and their designs seemed almost crude compared to the sleek vessels of modern times. "Look at those engine designs," laughed Jack, the ship's engineer. "They're using particle thrust systems. That's ancient technology. My grandfather's grandfather wouldn't even recognize those models." The crew joined in the laughter, but Reynolds remained quiet. Something about these ships made him uneasy. They were too well preserved for their age, too perfectly positioned. "Sir," called out Lisa from the communication station, "I'm getting some odd readings. There appears to be power signatures coming from the fleet. Very faint, but they're there." "Impossible," Jack scoffed. "Nothing this old could still have active power systems." Reynolds ordered a full scan of the nearest capital ship. The results made him lean forward in surprise. The hull was made of materials they couldn't even identify, despite their advanced scanning technology. The armor, which looked primitive, was actually composed of layers upon layers of complex alloys. "Send these readings to Federation Command," Reynolds ordered, "and prepare a boarding team. I want to know what we're dealing with here." As the crew prepared for the boarding operation, more ships from the Federation began arriving. News of the discovery had spread quickly. Soon, the ancient fleet was surrounded by vessels from various Federation worlds, each wanting to study this remarkable find. "These must be remnants of some long-dead civilization," announced Professor Wilson, a Federation historian who had arrived on the first research vessel. "Probably destroyed themselves with their primitive technology. Look at these weapon systems. They're using directed energy weapons. How quaint." Reynolds watched as more researchers arrived, all of them dismissing the fleet as an interesting but primitive relic. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The boarding team's first reports came in. They had found their way into one of the smaller ships. The interior was dark, powered down, but in perfect condition. No signs of battle damage, no signs of abandonment. It was as if the crew had simply stepped out one day, leaving everything in order. "Captain," called Tom, his voice suddenly tense, "we found something in the main computer banks. Well, you need to see this." On the screen appeared a symbol, a simple design showing a planet with two crossing lines behind it. Below it was text in an unknown language. As they watched, the ship's computer began translating it. "Property of the Human Defense Force," Reynolds read aloud. "Fifth Fleet, Earth Command. Humans." Professor Wilson frowned. "Never heard of them. Must be the name of whatever primitive species built these relics." But Reynolds noticed something else, a date stamp on the message. According to their translations, these ships hadn't been built 50,000 years ago. They had been built 50,000 years in the future from their own time, then somehow sent back through time itself. The laughter on the bridge died away as this information sank in. Reynolds stared out at the ancient fleet, no longer seeing primitive relics, but something far more mysterious and possibly far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "Contact Federation Command," he ordered quietly. "Tell them we need every available research team." Now, the research deck of Reynolds' ship had transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, trying to decode the massive amount of data they'd recovered from just one of the fleet's smaller vessels. "This is impossible," muttered Professor Wilson, staring at his screen. The professor hadn't slept in 2 days, his earlier mockery of the fleet replaced by growing amazement. "The encryption on these systems, it's beyond anything we've ever seen." Reynolds stood behind him, watching streams of code flow across multiple screens. "Any progress on accessing the main databanks?" "That's just it," Wilson replied, running his hands through his messy hair. "The systems are letting us in, but slowly, like they're testing us." Each solved puzzle reveals another layer of information. Across the room, a young researcher named Alan suddenly shouted, "I got something." Everyone rushed to his station, where a video file had begun playing on the main screen. The image showed a command center, far more advanced than anything they'd seen before. A figure in a uniform stood before the camera, but the video was degraded, making their features unclear. "This is Admiral James Walker of the Human Defense Force." The figure spoke in a clear, commanding voice. "If you're watching this, you've found our gift to the future. Or perhaps I should say, our insurance policy." The room fell silent as the message continued. "We knew they would return one day," the Admiral continued. "We stopped them once, at a terrible cost. But humanity couldn't leave the future undefended. So we built this fleet, time-locked it, hid it where it would be found when needed." "Who?" Wilson whispered. "Who would return?" As if answering his question, the message shifted, showing images that made everyone step back in horror. Massive organic ships, writhing with tentacles and bristling with weapons they couldn't comprehend. Planets being consumed. Entire solar systems going dark. "The timestamp," Alan said, checking the data. "This message was recorded 50,000 years in our future, but it's talking about events even further ahead. These humans, they fought this enemy and then sent their fleet back through time itself." More data began flowing as the ship's systems recognized they had passed some sort of test. Technical specifications appeared, showing weapons and defense systems that seemed to defy the laws of physics as they knew them. "Look at this," called out Lisa from her station. "The hull design we thought was primitive. It's adaptive metamaterial. It can change its entire molecular structure in response to different types of attacks. That's why it looked simple. It's currently in dormant mode." Reynolds watched as his team made discovery after discovery. The primitive engines could bend space itself. The outdated weapons could target enemies through multiple dimensions. Every system they had mocked was revealing itself to be centuries beyond their understanding. "Captain," Tom's voice came over the intercom, tense with urgency. "Something's happening on the fleet's command ship." The entire research team rushed to the observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see lights flickering to life across the enormous vessel. Sections of hull were shifting, changing, revealing weapon systems and sensor arrays that had been invisible before. "More data incoming," Alan reported, his fingers flying over his console. It's an AI. The fleet has a quantum AI system that's been dormant all this time. It's waking up." The main screen filled with new text. "Human Defense Force AI Guardian Online. Beginning evaluation of TURRENT civilization technological ILEVEL and 380 ASCESSMENT protocols. Threat assessment." Wilson asked nervously, "Are we being tested?" Reynolds understood suddenly. "Not tested," he said quietly. "Taught. This fleet, these humans, they didn't just leave us weapons. They left us a teacher." The AI's next message confirmed his theory. "Greetings, children of the GE future. Your civilization HAs REACHE the necessary development stag, beginning emergency defense protocols, and noveligi terrain and staffier. Time remaining before enemy arrival, 847 standard days. The laughter that had once filled the ship at the sight of this primitive fleet was long gone. Now there was only the quiet sound of people realizing just how wrong they had been, and the growing understanding that they had very little time to learn from humanity's legacy. "Send word to the Federation Council," Reynolds ordered. Tell them we're going to need every pilot, every engineer, every scientist they can spare. We have a lot to learn, and not much time to learn it." Deep within the command ship of the ancient fleet, systems that had slept for millennia stirred to life. The Federation research teams watched in awe as panels they had thought were solid metal simply dissolved, revealing complex control interfaces beneath. "The whole ship is transforming," Alan reported, his eyes fixed on the readings flooding his screen. It's waking up, piece by piece." Reynolds stood on the bridge of the human command ship, which had accepted his presence after a series of tests from the AI Guardian. The bridge was unlike anything he had ever seen. There were no physical controls, just shimmering fields of light that responded to thought and movement. "AI Guardian," Reynolds called out. "What's happening to the fleet?" A soft blue light filled the bridge as the AI responded, its voice somehow both mechanical and warmly human, initiating full revival protocols. "This fleet was designed to evolve during its dormant period. What you see now is 50,000 years of automated self-improvement." The Federation crews watched in stunned silence as the fleet's true form revealed itself. The supposedly primitive armor plating flowed like liquid metal, restructuring itself into configurations that defied their understanding of physics. Weapon systems emerged from previously invisible seams, some of them drawing power from dimensions their scientists hadn't even discovered yet. "Impossible," Professor Wilson whispered, scanning one of the smaller ships. "These power readings, they're drawing energy directly from the quantum fabric of space itself. Our most advanced theories barely scratched the surface of this technology." The AI Guardian's voice filled all their communication channels. "Beginning crew selection protocols. Your people must be chosen carefully. The technology aboard these vessels requires specific neural patterns for proper operation." "Neural patterns?" Reynolds asked. "These ships are not controlled, Captain Reynolds. They are joined with. The human crews who once operated them shared a direct neural link with their vessels. Your people must be tested for compatibility." As if to demonstrate, a section of the wall beside Reynolds shimmered and became transparent, revealing vast chambers filled with what looked like sleeping pods. "Integration chambers," the AI explained, "where crew members first bond with their ships." Federation volunteers began arriving from across known space as word spread about the fleet's awakening. The AI tested thousands, accepting only those whose minds could handle the neural interface. Those who passed found themselves experiencing something beyond their wildest dreams. "It's incredible," breathed Lisa, one of the first to successfully bond with a ship. Her eyes glowed with a faint inner light as she accessed the vessel's systems directly through her thoughts. "The ship, it's not just responding to commands. It's like it's part of me. I can feel every system, every weapon, every shield generator." But not all the revelations were comforting. As more systems came online, the AI Guardian began sharing tactical data about their future enemy. The threats they would face were beyond anything the Federation had imagined possible. "These beings exist partially outside normal spacetime," the AI explained, projecting images that made even veteran soldiers step back in horror. "Conventional weapons are useless against them. That's why humans developed technologies that could fight on multiple dimensional planes simultaneously." Reynolds watched as another ship in the fleet awakened, its hull rippling with patterns of energy that hurt his eyes to look at directly. How did humans create all this? The level of advancement. Necessity. The AI replied simply. When faced with extinction, humans achieved what they had previously thought impossible. They compressed 10,000 years of technological development into less than a century. The AI paused, its tone becoming more solemn. But the cost was devastating. In the end, humanity sacrificed everything to ensure other species would have a fighting chance. This fleet represents the pinnacle of their achievement and their final gift to the future. As if to emphasize this point, the entire fleet suddenly pulsed with energy, each ship lighting up in sequence until they formed a vast, glowing pattern against the darkness of space. The Federation vessels nearby looked like children's toys in comparison. Full revival sequence complete, the AI announced. Beginning accelerated training protocols. Remember, we have less than 800 days to prepare you for what's coming. The enemy humanity fought will return, and this time, you must be ready to take their place as defenders of this galaxy. Reynolds looked out at the now awakened fleet, finally understanding the true magnitude of what humanity had achieved. They hadn't just built ships. They had created a legacy that could save all of civilization. The command center of the human fleet buzzed with activity as newly trained Federation crews worked alongside the AI Guardian. 6 months had passed since the fleet's awakening, and the changes in both ships and crews were remarkable. Dimensional breach detected in Training Sector 7, announced the AI Guardian. Reynolds watched as Lisa, now fully integrated with her ship, responded instantly. Her vessel shifted, parts of its hull seeming to fold through spaces that shouldn't exist, emerging to intercept a target that was only partially visible in normal space. Direct hit, Lisa reported, her voice carrying the strange harmonic quality that came from being linked with her ship. The phase-shifted weapons work exactly as designed. The target never even saw us coming. Professor Wilson, who had transformed from skeptic to one of their most valuable researchers, looked up from his studies of the human technical archives. The more we learn about their technology, the more extraordinary it becomes. They didn't just advance their science, they completely reimagined it. The AI Guardian's presence filled the room, its tone more serious than usual. It is time you understood the full scope of what you face. Initiating historical playback sequence. The air shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by a three-dimensional recreation of events from humanity's war. They watched as Earth's cities burned, as vast organic ships descended from skies torn open by impossible weapons. But they also saw humanity fight back with increasing desperation and ingenuity. They came without warning, the AI narrated. Beings from spaces between spaces, hunting for new realms to consume. Humanity named them the Void Hunters, though they had many names for themselves, all unpronounceable in normal space. The images showed human scientists working frantically, developing technologies that broke through barrier after barrier of what they had thought possible. Ships that could phase through dimensions, weapons that could strike targets that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Defenses that could absorb attacks from weapons that bent the laws of physics themselves. But the greatest achievement, the AI continued, was the development of time displacement technology. Humanity realized they couldn't win their war, but they could prepare future civilizations for the next one. Reynolds watched as the historical images showed the construction of the fleet, not just in normal space, but across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The ships were built to evolve during their dormant period, the AI explained. Each vessel contains quantum computers that have spent 50,000 years improving their own designs. That's why the ships keep changing, Alan realized. They're still evolving, even now. The AI's tone grew more urgent. But our time grows short. Long-range sensors have detected dimensional disturbances at the edge of known space. The Void Hunters approach earlier than anticipated. New data flooded the screens, readings that would have been incomprehensible 6 months ago, but now carried terrible meaning to the trained crews. The enemy humanity had fought was returning, and they were coming in force. How long do we have? Reynolds asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. At current speed, they will reach Federation space in 62 days. The AI responded. Less time than we had hoped for training, but we must work with what we have. Professor Wilson's face had gone pale as he studied the incoming data. These readings, they're larger than any attack force mentioned in the human records. Correct, the AI confirmed. They have grown stronger over the millennia. This invasion force is approximately 3 times the size of the one humanity faced. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If humanity had barely managed to stop a smaller force at the cost of their own existence, what chance did they have against this one? As if reading their thoughts, the AI's voice softened. But you have advantages humanity did not. You have their technologies, refined over 50,000 years. You have ships that have evolved far beyond their original designs. And most importantly, you have knowledge of what's coming. Reynolds straightened his uniform, looking at the crews that had trained so hard to master humanity's legacy. Send word to every Federation world, he ordered. All ships to battle stations. All crews to begin final preparation protocols. He turned to the AI. Guardian, begin ultimate weapons systems activation. Whatever's coming, we'll be ready. The AI's response was simple but carried the weight of humanity's final promise. The defenses they built will not fail. The legacy they left will not be wasted. The future they died to protect will survive. Space itself seemed to tear open as the first Void Hunter ships emerged at the edge of Federation territory. The normal blackness of space warped and twisted around their massive organic forms, tentacles of dark energy reaching across multiple dimensions. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, Lisa reported from her command ship. Enemy fleet size. It's even larger than our projections. They're emerging from spaces we can't even scan properly. Reynolds stood on the bridge of the human flagship, now fully integrated with its systems through neural links that had taken months to master. Around him, the Federation's combined fleet, a mixture of their own vessels and the human legacy ships, moved into defensive formations. Remember your training. The AI Guardian's voice echoed through all ships. The enemy will attempt to disorient you with attacks from multiple dimensional planes. Trust your ships. Trust the neural links. Let the combat computers assist your reactions. The first wave of Void Hunters struck with devastating force. Their weapons didn't so much fire as tear holes in reality itself, trying to shred Federation ships across multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the human fleet's defenses held. Phase shields holding at 87%. Alan reported from his vessel. The adaptive armor is learning their attack patterns, effectiveness increasing with each hit. Reynolds watched as Lisa's ship demonstrated the full power of humanity's technology. Her vessel seemed to blur, existing in several places at once, its weapons striking Void Hunter ships through dimensional gaps they themselves had created. 3 massive enemy vessels disappeared in explosions that rippled across multiple planes of existence. They're adapting to our weapons, Professor Wilson warned from the tactical center. Just as the records showed, they learn and evolve during combat. A Void Hunter vessel larger than the others emerged from a massive dimensional tear, its surface writhed with tentacles of dark energy, and its very presence seemed to distort the space around it. Command vessel detected, the AI Guardian announced, similar to the one humanity faced in their final battle. Recommend immediate concentration of fire. Reynolds gave the order, and 5 human legacy ships moved in perfect synchronization. Their hulls rippled with energy as they activated weapons that the Federation crews had spent months learning to control. Beams of light that bent in impossible ways, missiles that existed in 4 dimensions at once, and energy fields that could shred through the quantum fabric of space itself, all focused on a single target. The Void Hunter command ship shrugged off the first barrage, its defenses warping space itself to absorb the attacks. But the human ships had been designed for exactly this scenario. Each hit weakened the dimensional barriers the enemy relied on for protection. Multiple enemy reinforcements incoming, Lisa warned. They're trying to surround us. Reynolds watched as Federation ships engaged the smaller enemy vessels, applying tactics they'd learned from months of studying human combat records. They didn't try to fight the Void Hunters head-on. Instead, they used the aliens' own dimensional distortions against them, turning their space-twisting abilities into traps. Enemy casualties mounting, Allen reported. Their adaptation rate is slower than expected. The human fleet's evolutionary algorithms are staying ahead of them. But the victory was far from certain. A dozen Federation ships disappeared in bursts of twisted spacetime as the Void Hunters launched a coordinated attack. The enemy's numbers seemed endless, pouring through dimensional breaches faster than they could be sealed. We can't maintain this defensive position, Reynolds realized. Guardian, access tactical protocol Omega-7. The AI's response was immediate. Caution. Omega-7 protocol was never tested in actual combat. Humanity developed it as a theoretical last resort. We're out of options, Reynolds replied. Execute the protocol. The human fleet began to move in ways that defied conventional physics. Ships linked together through dimensional bridges, forming structures that existed simultaneously in multiple planes of reality. Energy began to build, drawing power from the quantum fabric of space itself. All Federation ships, fall back beyond the safety threshold, Reynolds ordered. What we're about to attempt? Well, let's just say we'll only get one chance at this. As the Federation ships retreated to safe distances, the human fleet prepared to demonstrate why these vessels had been humanity's final and greatest creation. The real battle was about to begin. The human fleet, linked in its impossible geometric pattern, pulsed with energy that made reality itself shudder. As the Omega-7 protocol activated, new systems emerged from within the ships, technologies that even the AI Guardian had kept hidden until this moment. Dimensional convergence at 75% and climbing, Lisa reported, her voice strained from the neural link's increased load. The ships, they're changing again. Reynolds watched as the fleet transformed one final time. The vessels merged their energy fields, creating a lattice of power that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. What had seemed like primitive design choices now revealed their true purpose. Each ship was a piece of a much larger weapon. Final recording from Earth Command unlocked. The AI Guardian announced. Playing now. Admiral Walker's image appeared one last time. Older than in the previous messages, his uniform bearing the marks of desperate battles. If you're seeing this, you've discovered our last resort. The Omega Protocol was our final project, a weapon that could strike at the very nature of the Void Hunter's existence. The recording continued as the fleet completed its transformation. We discovered that they aren't just from another dimension. They're from a space between spaces, a void that shouldn't exist. And that's their weakness. Reality itself rejects their existence, if you can force them to fully materialize in normal spacetime. Professor Wilson's eyes widened as he understood. The fleet. It's not just a weapon. It's a dimensional anchor. The Void Hunters seemed to sense the threat. Their entire armada turned toward the transformed human fleet, launching everything they had. But the attacks passed through the linked ships harmlessly, the energy absorbed and redirected through dimensional pathways that the human vessels had created. Convergence at 90%, Allen called out. Enemy fleet is attempting to retreat through their dimensional gates, but the anchor field is holding them in place. The space around them began to warp and twist as fundamental forces came into conflict. The Void Hunters, trapped between dimensions by the human fleet's energy web, started to lose their ability to exist partially outside normal spacetime. They're being forced to fully materialize, Lisa observed. Their bodies, they can't maintain cohesion in our dimension. Reynolds watched as the massive enemy ships began to break apart, their impossible biology unable to exist in normal space. The Void Hunter's screams echoed across dimensional barriers, a sound that would haunt the crews for years to come. Emergency power surge detected in the enemy command vessel, the AI warned. They're attempting to tear open a hole in spacetime large enough to escape the anchor field. Not this time, Reynolds said quietly. Guardian, activate the final sequence. The human fleet's energy web contracted suddenly, forcing the laws of physics themselves back into alignment. The Void Hunters, creatures that had evolved to exist in the spaces between spaces, found themselves fully pulled into a reality that rejected their very existence. The result was catastrophic. Ship after ship simply unraveled, their impossible forms unable to maintain coherence in normal spacetime. The massive command vessel fought the hardest, its surface writhing with tentacles of dark energy as it tried to tear its way back to the void between dimensions. Convergence at 100%, Ellen reported. Dimensional anchor field at maximum power. The human fleet pulsed one final time, and reality snapped back into proper alignment. The remaining Void Hunters, trapped fully in normal space, literally ceased to exist. Their massive fleet, which had terrorized multiple dimensions, vanished in a cascade of quantum energy. As the energy web dissolved and the human ships separated, returning to their individual forms, a deep silence fell over the battlefield. The Federation crews, watching from a safe distance, had witnessed something that redefined their understanding of what was possible. Threat eliminated, the AI Guardian announced simply. Human defense protocols successfully executed. Reynolds looked out at the now empty space where the enemy had been, understanding at last the full scope of humanity's achievement. They hadn't just built weapons, they had created a way to enforce the very laws of reality itself. Guardian, he asked quietly, did they know? Did humanity know this would work? The AI's response carried a note of pride. They hoped. They theorized. They sacrificed everything to give future civilizations this chance. And now, after 50,000 years, their faith has been rewarded. 3 months after the battle, Reynolds stood in the Great Hall of the Federation Council. Representatives from every known civilization had gathered to witness this historic moment. The human fleet, now fully awakened and restored, hovered in orbit above, a constant reminder of their salvation. The archives have been fully decoded, Professor Wilson announced to the assembled council. We now understand why humanity designed their fleet the way they did, why they made it appear primitive at first glance. The professor activated a holographic display, showing the fleet's evolution from its dormant state to its final form. They knew the Void Hunters would return. They knew future civilizations would need protection. But they also knew that giving advanced technology to unprepared species would lead to disaster. So they built a teaching fleet, Lisa added, standing at the podium. Her neural link with her ship gave her eyes a subtle glow. The primitive appearance was a test. Those who dismissed the fleet as obsolete proved they weren't ready for its power. Those who looked deeper, who tried to understand, they were the ones worthy of humanity's legacy. The AI Guardian's voice filled the chamber, speaking to the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. Humanity faced a choice in their final days. They could have used the Omega Protocol to save themselves, but the weapon would have been destroyed in the process. Instead, they chose to preserve it for future generations, sacrificing their own existence to give you a chance. Reynolds stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silent hall. We've learned that the fleet was only part of humanity's gift. Hidden in its databases are technological advances that will change everything. Clean energy, medical breakthroughs, faster than light travel beyond anything we've achieved. But most importantly, they left us their history, their culture, their art, everything that made them who they were. And their final message. Alan added, activating another hologram. Admiral Walker's image appeared one last time, recorded in humanity's final hours. To those who find our fleet, who prove worthy of its power, we give you not just our technology, but our hope. We die knowing that the galaxy will live on, that other species will have the chance we never had. Learn from our mistakes, grow beyond our achievements, and remember that even in the darkest hour, sacrifice for the greater good is never wasted. The council chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. The human fleet wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to a new age of advancement and understanding. The fleet's ad will remain active, Reynolds announced. It will continue to teach, to guide, to help us understand the gifts humanity left behind. But it will also stand guard, ready to defend against any threat that might follow in the Void Hunter's wake. Professor Wilson stepped forward again. We propose the creation of a new Federation institution, the Human Legacy Academy, a place where the best minds from all our worlds can study humanity's knowledge, learn their techniques, and build upon their achievements. Lisa smiled, feeling her ship's agreement through their neural link. They gave us everything they had, prepared us for a threat we never saw coming, and asked for nothing in return except that we use their gift wisely. The Federation Council voted unanimously to accept the proposal. As the session ended, Reynolds walked to the observation deck, looking up at the fleet that had saved them all. The ships no longer appeared primitive. Their true nature was clear to all now, a testament to human ingenuity and sacrifice. The AI Guardian joined him, its presence contemplative. They would be proud, it said quietly. Their gift has achieved everything they hoped for, and more. Reynolds nodded, watching as Federation ships docked with the human vessels, new crews preparing to learn the ancient technologies. They turned their own extinction into salvation for countless species. They didn't just save us, they gave us a future beyond anything we could have imagined. Above them, the human fleet gleamed in the starlight, no longer an ancient relic, but a bridge between past and future. Humanity had transformed their final defeat into an eternal victory, their legacy now living on in every civilization that would follow in their footsteps. The laughter that had once greeted the fleet's discovery was long forgotten. In its place was something far more valuable: understanding, respect, and endless gratitude for the species that had sacrificed everything to give the future a chance.